I don't want to be sold on something that I don't need. I mean, I don't want to go buy something if I don't need it. But if you can convince me that it's better than something I have, or if it's going to help me do something better, then I'm definitely open to buying something. So I think that people have got to remember that. Sell the way that you want to be sold to. And you have to have a plan, and you've got to use all those failures and all those road bumps, and use my other P word, pivot, and come up with a way that you learned from those failures and those bumps. And I use my 7 Ps all the time to do this. And I think that that makes a really big difference. Those people that are not motivated every day, you have to have a plan in sales. You really do.
Ready? Ready to rock and roll? Is that action? All right. Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Absolutely. Go. Go.
Hello, everybody. It's Jason Will with
Go.
This is a real estate podcast. But we talk about leadership, personal growth, and becoming the best version of yourself. Leadership, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Growth, best version of yourself.
Go.
So this is a real estate podcast. Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of the Impact Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Will. I am joined by the very beautiful and talented Molly Ray. How are you doing, Molly Ray?
I'm doing great.
And we're so lucky to have you in studio today because you have a super busy schedule. Been trying to get you in here for like months, I feel like. Well, we were doing a double date, and we were just talking about sales, and you were just like, what do you call that? Pontificating? Or you were just like waxing poetic. You were just going off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was, having dinner with a sales coach, just with all the wisdom and all the nuggets of value you were dropping. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get you in here to do a podcast episode. And here you are.
Well, thanks.
So we're going to be dropping some knowledge bombs today that hopefully it will change the lives of anyone that's in sales. I'm in the real estate industry. You're in medical sales, okay? Medical sales. And the things that we're going to be talking about today are going to transcend industries if you're in sales. So we're going to break it down. So I'm hoping that somebody will listen to this and something will click. I talk a lot about how like professional athletes talk about how at some point in their career, the game started to slow down and they can start seeing it. And sometimes I think salespeople feel like they're drinking out of a fire hose. They may have a big product manual they have to memorize. They got all this dialogue and all these little acronyms and, how to define things and what things actually mean. And then all this, the whole business development and developing a schedule and things like that and knowing what is dollar productive and what isn't, they're drinking from a fire hose. They don't know. But after this podcast, I feel like we're going to take all the excuses off the table. Like it's time for you to clock in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Got to be present.
Damn right. Okay, let's get into it. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about what does your typical day look like from a sales perspective? What do you actually do? Who are you calling on? Who is your customer?
So my customers are dermatologists, dermatopathologists, Mohs surgeons, oncologists, medical and surgical, as well as some other just general surgeons. So I work for a company called Castle Biosciences, and I sell a gene expression profile test that is for patients that have invasive melanoma, which transcends into giving physicians a test that tells them more information about their patients that on their risk of reoccurrence in the next 5 years, as well as sentinel lymph node biopsy guidance, which helps them to determine how to surveil them and how to manage them. So I really just talk to doctors all day long about how my tests can actually fit in to their regular clinical workflow and give them more information and how they can use the information to then better manage their patients. So I do this for invasive melanoma patients as well as high-risk squamous cell patients. And then we also have a differential test that dermatopathologists use to help give them on some of those ambiguous lesions that they get when you get a biopsy at the dermatologist when they're hard to call. So if you don't know if it's going to be benign or malignant. So I have a lot of different hats that I wear in a lot of different settings. But really we're trying to close that gap in that whole multidisciplinary approach and making sure the patient is managed in the best way. So I have a lot of different things that I do on a daily basis.
So is this product, is it unique to your company? Do you have any competitors?
Yeah, so our company started out with a product that was for uveal melanoma, and then they merged over into doing more in the dermatologic space. So there is a new competitor that's kind of come out, but again, gene expression profile testing has been around for a very long time. It's most well known, I would say, for breast cancer, like the BRCA gene test for breast cancer. And then just over the last few years, our data just keeps getting better and better, so that we have more clinical, validity and utility for people to kind of see, because it really takes years to get databases and to figure out how you can use our test so that it can truly make a difference in patients' lives.
So if you don't call on physicians and their staff, are you going to lose business? Is somebody else going to come in with a similar product and sell, or...
Essentially, they definitely could. I think the other thing is that if I'm not in there and kind of reminding them and sharing more clinical information that comes out on a regular basis, they're also kind of missing, because they don't have time either, right? As busy as their practices are, to learn what the new information is and say, okay, I did have a patient that this gene expression test could actually, help me to figure out how to better manage them, because there are only staging mechanisms in regards to how you address patients for melanoma, and staging is based on population, and that is not always the way that you can't just judge a patient based on their staging. I mean, you kind of almost have to have another way, which is why we came up with another prognostic approach, so that you can not only look at the patient's individual staging as a factor for management, but also look at their individual tumor biology. So now we've got just more tools in the toolbox so that the doctor can more effectively manage them. Because it's just, the medical industry is ever changing. So we now have so many different immunotherapies that have come out, more adjuvant treatments, and different ways that we can actually make sure that these patients get in early intervention for cancer, so that they don't have to go on to have, an increase in mortality. So
okay, so there was a lot of technical jargon in there. A lot of it was
sorry, I was trying to dumb it down
and below my knees. But I did see commonalities. I did hear you mentioning commonalities, which I want to unpack here in just a second. But I wanted to talk to you about, you're very fond of P words.
Yes.
Right? So we want to get to your 7 Ps, but we have another word that we were talking about, and that word was passion. And I was confessing to you my frustration on dealing with so many real estate agents that have so much potential. There's another P word. Another, have so much potential, but are just not tapping into it for some reason. And I was telling you about my mentor friend who told me, listen, you're not going to be able to motivate people unless they love what they do, unless they have passion about what they do. But where does your passion come from? I mean, you basically got into this field right out of Auburn University, right? So did you know as an undergrad, I am passionate about sales?
No, I didn't. I mean, my background was was exercise science, so pre-physical therapy, and then I had a minor in business, and I knew that I wanted to do something in healthcare. I didn't know if I wanted to go to physical therapy school. I didn't know if I really wanted to go into sales. Pharmaceutical sales was kind of growing and was, one of the leading things to kind of go into as soon as we got out of college. And so I was kind of interested in that, but I really didn't know. So one of the things that I did was I did some, preceptorships and kind of followed people around and kind of tried to figure out what I really wanted to do. And I found out that I really did like sales. And what did I love about sales? I love sales because every day is different. I loved that I could have financial freedom. I loved that I could have control of the sale in some of the situations. I could control how much I worked. I could control my hustle, so to speak. And I also have a passion for people, and I had a passion for patients, and also love medical just in general because I love that we are actually helping people. And so that's my passion, I would say. Besides all of the things, though, that everybody probably says that drives you, I mean, obviously my passion is my family, it's God, and my friends. But you really have to figure out and dig deep into what your passion is in regards to your job, because your passion does, I feel correlate into your success and overall success. And we're in sales, and sales is tough, and sales can beat you down. You can get the door, closed in your face many, many times, and it's hard, but you got to pick yourself back up, and you got to figure out, what is it that I'm passionate about most in my life, whether it's on a personal level as well as professional, and figure out how to merge those together. Because for me, I mean, this is such a big part of my life is my job, because it is my passion, because I love helping people. I love talking to doctors. I love trying to find a way to, have a solution to their problems for their patients. And it makes me feel good. And so I think that a lot of people get into ruts in sales in general because they lose that passion, or they forget what is that passion. It doesn't even have to be anything that's really big. It can be as simple as, every day I just want to have financial freedom for my family. Every day I want to get one new lead. I mean, you can make different, little kind of goals for yourself, but at the end of the day, if your passion isn't there, you're not gonna be able to achieve those goals. So I think that people have got to decide for themselves, because it is a very personal thing. I can't tell you what somebody else's passion is. You have to really figure out what makes you get up every day and make you do what you love, which is hopefully sales, right?
Well, yeah. And I got a couple things that jumped out at me from what you said. One of the biggest one, I think, is that people are overthinking it. It's fascinating. You start just kind of indexing specific things that could drive people. Like, for instance, in a sense, you're your own boss. You don't have a ceiling on your achievement. Like, sky's the limit. You could have been at a 9-to-5 prior to getting in sales where there was no advancement. You had no flexibility. There's a hard ceiling on where you can go. And every day's the same. I love the fact that everything's different. In real estate, no transactions are identical. Just little things like that. Like, I'd like to do something with my life that is not so mundane. But the other thing was helping people. And then the final thing I heard was, all right, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but let's say I'm not passionate about sales. I'm not passionate about helping people, but I am passionate about the fact that this sales job gives me that financial freedom, or gives me the flexibility to take whatever vacation I want to take, or buy the latest and greatest gigantic flat screen TV. If this life affords me, or if this job or this occupation affords me a life by my own design, I could find passion there too. Could I not?
Sure, you sure could, yeah.
So maybe these people just need to dig a little bit deeper and reflect on things. It could be a matter of gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful I get to take 4 awesome vacations a year.
I think that's huge. I think that people a lot of times forget to have the attitude of gratitude, because I think that us in sales, we are so lucky to have the job we have. And so I think if you wake up with the gratitude every day and being like, gosh, I'm so grateful, because a lot of us salespeople are so glad that we don't have to go clock in and clock out somewhere, and that we can have the flexibility to have kind of juggle all these different things that go on in the day. Because not only am I just selling to new people, but I'm prospecting, I'm thinking about cold calling, following up on, patients' results, I'm following up with, physicians, I'm putting together, events and resident programs. And so every day is different, and that's exciting. That's fun. It's fun to do something different every day. So every day is not just the mundane, I just go to go somewhere and just hit the clock and do the same thing every day. And there's nothing wrong with those jobs, but we got into sales because we wanted more. We wanted something different, whether that is just the financial freedom, or we wanted just the everyday practices of constantly challenging ourselves, our brains, and doing something different. Because some of us need that. We need to be fed in different ways, and be able to use our passion in different ways, with creativity, whether that's coming up with plans, which, I'm big on the P words. That's one of my words. But for passion, I do think some people do overthink it. I think you do have to dig deep, but yet I also don't think you have to dig so deep that you are still on that search for years for what that passion is. I think it can be as simple as just the things that just look around you every day and what makes you happy. I mean, it can also mean people, I think passion has to be even something more than just happiness, but what makes you happy? I mean, if you are happy with going out to dinner every Friday night with your spouse, then that should drive you alone, that you get to be able to make enough money to go to a nice dinner with your spouse once a week. I mean, that's, we overthink sometimes, I think, too, with the passion.
I like going to the grocery store and not having to add up what's going in the cart. Like, I just go and get what I want, and she rings it up and she says it's $300. I'm like, fine, great. Here's my card. Let's get out of here. I'm going to tell you, this podcast could be a drinking game, though. If you're out there and you're drinking, every time you hear a P word, you have to drink.
I got a lot of them. Be careful.
I'm going to share my why with the audience. I never knew what I wanted to be growing up. I did not know what I wanted to be when I was in high school. I did not know what I wanted to be all through my time at Auburn. I graduated with no direction. And I think being lost for that long in my life, I never played sports. I never really had a lot of hobbies. I was, fascinated with girls. But other than that, I really didn't have anything that was just like consume my interest. And so that led me to be one of the partiers. And, you could probably talk to your husband. He's probably told you some stories. I was really good at that. But that caused me to be the topic of conversation, like Jason's the black sheep. Is Jason ever going to grow up? I was telling some of my aides the other day, like in high school, I never got invited to, like, the parties were always kept secret for me because if I showed up, I was burning something down. But that helped me because that gave me a chip on my shoulder because a lot of people were like, I mean, even girls I was fascinated with girls, but I couldn't really get a date or really motivate people. Girls weren't motivated to date me because I was just so wild. They just didn't, I guess they were looking ahead and going, if this becomes
it's not husband material.
Yeah, because he's too wild. So anyway, but that's given me, that has filled me with a lot of regrets, and there's been a lot of disappointments, and I've gotten in trouble a lot. But it's so powerful for me today because I'm trying so hard to prove everybody wrong and show everybody what I can do. So for a while there, I was using the financial freedom as my big why, my source of motivation, but it was just too noble. It was too broad. It wasn't specific enough. And I had a mentor that gave me permission to be super selfish. He was like, what really makes you tick? And, I've got some agents where if you tell them they can't do something, you just don't want to tell them they're not going to be able to do it because they get fired up. That's something I think people can take a lot away from when they're reflecting on their why. Is it just a chip on your shoulder? I had one mentor that was just living large, like had multiple rental houses, pre-2008, 2008 hit. And he was at Starbucks with one of his kids and his card got declined it was an under $5 purchase. So he still carries that receipt around in his wallet today.
I love that.
So, he's like, he was so embarrassed about that. And he was like, that will never happen again. My card will never be declined again. So I think this would be, if anybody got anything out of this podcast, if they were to really dig deep down to figure out what drives them, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I think it is. I think everybody has a different things, different passions that motivate them, different reasons that make you do what you do on a daily basis. I mean, we all have things that we love to do, and I think that can correlate into your passion. I think that also using that passion into your job is what makes you successful long term. I really do. And I do think that persistency, there's a P word, and consistency really also are huge and you also have to have a plan. So can I say my 7 Ps?
Yeah, okay. That's where we're going next.
So my 7 Ps that I know that this.
But if somebody's playing a drinking game, sorry to interrupt. After all these 7 Ps, they could just be totally wasted. So this could be like a super intense drinking game. But sorry, go ahead.
No. So I had a friend that told me in college, actually, I think this was based, and I need to probably look up the actual meaning, but I think it was like the British Army that had 7 Ps that they would use for their military. And I kind of caught on to that and made it my own. So my 7 Ps that I kind of go by every day and always have in sales is that prior proper planning prevents persistent poor performance.
Wow.
And I think all those words are words that mean something to me. And that was the other thing I was going to say when it goes back to passion, is that you also may not even know exactly truly what your passion is, but there could be words that drive you, words that are impactful to you. And so for me, if I've had a really bad day and I lay my head down at the end of the night, I'm about to do my prayers, I'm like, did I do the best I could do? Did I learn something from what happened today? Even if I didn't get the sale, was there new information I learned? How am I going to use that new information? And how am I going to then transpire that new information to lead into a plan of action, change what I have going on? And then how am I going to, utilize that in the field the next day? So every day is a new day. So every day is a new set of chances. So even though you can have hard days and the door is closed on you multiple times, you have to have a plan, and you've got to use all those failures and all those road bumps and use my other P word, pivot, and come up with a way that you learned from those failures and those bumps. And I use my 7 Ps all the time to do this. And I think that makes a really big difference. Those people that are not motivated every day, you have to have a plan in sales. You really do. Now, there's a lot of days where I get done maybe early, and before I leave a city or town, I may decide that I'll just do a couple cold calls at the end of the day. I always try to plan that, but every day is so different because you never know how long you're going to have with a physician and if they need me. But I do think you need a plan. I think planning is really important. I think that will help you stay on task, which can also help you to stay motivated and make you be successful long term. I really do. I think it's hard for salespeople because we don't have a lot of those, we don't have to go and clock in, clock out, but you need to have like a place and plan of action of what you're going to do for that day every day. And I like to plan my stuff 3 months out. I mean, I think that also kind of keeps you on track. So that you can have those short-term, long-term sales, checking back in with people, follow-ups. I'm very big on like handwritten cards. I think emailing back, thanking people for their time. I think we forget to do that because we're in such a society of like instant gratification that we forget to, say thank you for your time today. Thank you for letting me reach out, whatever you're selling. So again, make sure you have a plan. I think that helps you to execute, which can also help keep you passionate in general about what you're doing.
I think that's such a great connection, like this point you're making about. So if I was like a professional quarterback, the only plan is to win. We're not practicing. We're not drawing out X's and O's. I'm probably not going to be all that motivated to go into the game and win because we don't have a plan.
No, what are you going to do? Who are you going to throw it to? What are you going to do? Yeah, what are you going to do?
I love that. I think that's going to be super helpful for folks. Now, you say you plan how much in advance?
I try to do 3 months out. I do, because I like to have so many different things working at once. I mean, I've got the clients that, are consistent, because I think maintaining clients is huge too. So maintenance of your business, don't just get one sale and move on. I mean, also, especially in the real estate world, I would say, a lot of those clients that you get one time, they could be clients again in the future, but also they're the ones that have all those referrals. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important to create that relationship and make sure that you maintain that relationship. So maintenance is really big with my clients. And then I have those short-term sales kind of going on in my head, those people that I want to reach out to every day. But then I also have those people that maybe they're just naysayers and they're just harder to move along the call cycle, because we're all going to have those. And I think you always have to have different things working. So whether that's short-term, long-term sell, and also your prospects and your cold calling. So, I mean, I like to have things kind of all the way out at least 3 months. Because I think it's important to have a plan, like I said. So, and it can change. Things pop up. Things are always changing, especially right now that Delta variant's kind of unfortunately kind of making its head, and we're all kind of having to change our plans. But at least I have a plan, and I've got other places that I can put them and move them, and you just have to pivot.
One of your P words is pivot.
I know, so I said pivot.
Yeah, so if when Delta variant comes up, I think it's easier. Is it not easier to pivot when you're a planner?
So yes and no. I mean, that's one thing.
You might have a plan B.
Right, exactly. And that's where you have to be flexible, right? Because you also have to be empathetic, especially during a situation like this in a pandemic. I have to be empathetic to the physician that I'm going to meet with, because now maybe they have a staff member who got COVID in the office and they're having to shut down. Maybe they don't have time. They've also had to change all their protocol in the office so they're having to see a lot of times less patients because they're having to make time, for people to come in, check their temperature, so it's just having to clean the rooms. I mean, there's just a lot of different factors that go in. So I have to be empathetic. And again, I have to remember, it's not always about me. It's about them. And right. I'm in their house and I'm their guest. So that's why I feel like you have to, I try not to get upset about the plans changing. I mean, that's part of being in sales, is that you have to always be able to kind of, turn your way into whatever is in front of you. I mean, because also there might be days where I might have had a plan to go see a couple, go cold call on a couple people, but maybe I'm getting a great lot of time with a client and it's really and then they want me to meet other people, and that could transpire into other business. So it makes more sense for me to stay there, because getting that business would matter more in the long term. And so again, you just have to be able to be flexible. I think flexibility is huge in sales. And you just have to figure out, where is my time really worth it, and where am I getting return on my investment for that time.
So do you plan a day to plan, or do you schedule a day to plan? I mean, at the end of this 3 months, or when the 3 months starts to end, you're
Yeah.
like, all right, I got to sit down
Yeah.
and devise my game plan for the next 3 months?
So I do it on a quarterly basis. I do kind of have a plan that I do myself. I keep like on a spreadsheet. And then I also do have, luckily, I have to give her credit, I do have an inside sales rep who does help me with planning because I am on the road all the time. But we do also have a list, and we communicate on what is considered like a shared like Excel spreadsheet where it's like live time. So we're constantly like, I have like my short-term people for her to target that I want meetings with, my long-term targets I want her to focus on, ones that maybe I'm now locked out of due to COVID because they aren't having vendors come in, but we'll circle back around. So we have notes, and we keep that together so that we're working constantly together to make sure that we are being efficient and we aren't letting things slip through the cracks. Because again, I know it takes a little bit of time and that I'm constantly updating throughout the day, but by having it in a live version, it makes it a lot easier that you can add those things in as your day goes. Because you never know sometimes, even with Google, we love Google, right? But sometimes maybe there's like, I'll pass by, a physician's office, it's like brand new, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I can put that in there as somebody for her to reach out to try to get me an appointment with.
Well, I've also heard this said in the real estate coaching space that you need to run, and there's so many sports analogies in our coaching world, but to run the plays that work. With your daily plan of action, your schedule is scheduled around areas of importance. You're identifying what works and what doesn't work. You're trying to be as dollar productive as possible.
Correct. Right. And my time is valuable because I am a full-time working mom, and I travel 2 full states and have overnights, and I'm constantly studying and, having to change what I'm presenting every day. I have a different PowerPoint presentation that I was talking to doctors about, because one doctor I met with today is not going to probably be, that information is probably not going to be important for them tomorrow. So you really have to make sure that you have a plan and that you actually are utilizing, all of your time efficiently. And I think that by, coming up with ways that you can be efficient will help you with your time management, because I think that's where some people in sales lose their passion too a little bit, and they get demotivated, is that they feel like their day was wasted, or that they didn't make anything, they didn't do anything important in that day to drive any business. But you have to break it down in small little pieces. You can't just say, okay, I didn't get a new listing today. Okay, that's fine. But did you find out something new? Did you make a new connection? Do you have somebody new to follow up with? And take notes. I mean, gosh, we're getting older. I can't remember where I was last week, but so I take notes all day long. I mean, I think it's really important that people need to take notes and write down. I know everybody learns differently, but I'm a very virtual learner. So I like to write down things. And I think that helps me stay on plan and stay on task. And some people like to type up spreadsheets and print them out in their car so they can just write down notes. So I think little tools like that, because everybody has a different way that works for them, but there's not just one way. But just figuring out and changing some of those little habits you do every day can become a new habit, which then can become a great habit, which then could maybe lead to a more successful year.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I love how we're kind of breaking this down, but we had a big rock where we're talking about passion. And then this next one that's just emerged is time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I have a lot of real estate agents on our roster that I know they wake up every day and go, all right, it's Wednesday or it's Thursday, and what am I going to do today? But why do you think so many people don't value their time or are willing to waste it so freely?
I mean, I think part of it is that we're all so connected with that whole instant gratification of just life, right? Like with social media, I'm amazed at how much, all of us, we're all guilty of just getting on social media. And before you know it, if you just start scrolling through, whether it's, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, next thing you know, you've wasted an hour. I'm not saying that there is not good content on social media platform. I love marketing and I love social media, but I think we also kind of have to set limits for ourselves on how much, we need to spend on those things on a daily basis, because is that bringing more value back to your job, and is that bringing value back to your family? So I feel like we all kind of have to just reanalyze where we spend our time, because time is money, and time we cannot get back with our family. And so I think, in my personal opinion, I utilize every minute I have of my day. I really try to. Yes, it's busy. Yes, it's crazy. And some days it's a little bit too much that I put on my schedule. But at the same time, I don't want to be sitting there going, I don't know where to go today. Should I go? Maybe I'll just drive to Auburn and just see if I can see a client. I mean, that doesn't work for me because I've never seen return on investment with that time. So I think if you have a plan, again, just like working families, you have a plan. Let's say today is Tuesday, Susie has soccer and, Jack has football and, little Johnny's going to dance, whatever it is, like, what you have that day. And I try to do my best, obviously, to work my work schedule around that, but they have a schedule and a plan, and their time is, important. And I think you have to make your time important too.
So I went to a chamber, the Vestavia Hills Chamber of Commerce Mayor Breakfast this week, and their special guest speaker was Brody Croyle, an awesome guy. And it's so funny. He made this point about instant gratification. I don't know. We talked about how, basically our culture is one of instant gratification, but people are kind of lazy and all those things. But he said, be willing to be grateful in the grind, realize the work is the reward, which I thought was really, really awesome. So it just falls right in line with a lot of things that I'm hearing you say that are super important. I also have, and Brody is also a person of very deep faith. And we also have a lot of folks in our company that are very faith-based in everything they do, all their decisions, everything. But I have heard it said by more than one pastor that really time is God's currency, right? And so it's very disrespectful, I would think, to disrespect something that is more important to God than anything. And it's more important to our kids than anything. I mean, we have all these reminders, like they spell love, Time. We have all these things. I'm just hoping, because these people, whether they love Jesus or love their kids or both, wherever they look, there's signs of where they can find this passion and how the passion should motivate them to plan. And once they start doing this, then hopefully it'll come into focus just how important time is. So what else do you think? What are your other thoughts on kind of what holds salespeople back?
I think salespeople get kind of stuck in also, it's the whole definition, of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. And I think that we are just, I don't want to use the word lazy. I think we just become okay with that, meaning that we don't want to challenge ourselves to do something in a different way. We think that we're the expert in what we're selling or what we're doing. But to me, if you're doing the same thing every day and nothing's coming of it, that's where I feel like the 7 Ps come into play, that I need to go back and reevaluate how I delivered that message to that physician. Did I answer those questions? Did I have probes to that physician to be able to get the answers, that even if he's not sold on what I'm selling him, that he has questions and concerns that if I didn't answer right there, I have a follow-up. I have some way to follow up with him. So I think that people really need to kind of challenge themselves a little bit more to look at it from a 10,000 foot view and say, what is it that I can do differently? If I'm doing something and it's not getting the results I want from my family, because everybody has a different measure on that, right? Whatever that is for your financial freedom. So I know some real estate agents want to work part-time, some want to work for full-time, some want to be the top agent. Everybody's measure of success is very different in all types of sales, right? Some people want to be on the stage and be recognized and have it all over LinkedIn that they won an award and were like a top sales rep, which is great. That's awesome. If you want to do that and that's your goal, do it. Other people, they just want to make the money and they don't care about the recognition. Other people, want to do it just for their family. So I think that, again, you really have to just look at it and decide on everyday basis, every day, really, every day, and weekly at least, if you're not going to do it every day. I always ask myself, what was something good that happened from today? What is something I learned from today? And what's something I could have done better? And I do write that down. And I think that has helped me to decide the next day, okay, what could I do a little bit better? And I think that people need to challenge themselves to do that, because we get stuck in a rut. And then we're just kind of in that, like a hamster wheel of just doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that that's part of sales. They lose the motivation, they lose the passion, they lose the drive, and then they just will even be on a hot, they can have a couple really good calls and a really good sales, and then they or kind of go back to just, okay, now I don't really know what to do. So I think if you can keep challenging yourself, learn different things, listen to podcasts, find those things. I mean, listen to, God's word, listen to, people that read a book. I mean, I just think there's so many different nuggets that means something to everybody in a different way, that if you can keep challenging yourself to get better in all those ways, it's just going to do nothing but help you and be better in your sales success.
So let's see. I've got passion. We have time. I'm hearing a key word that's come up more than once is reflection, self-reflection. That's really, really important. Also, what I heard you talk about is kind of getting on these C words now, but challenge, challenge yourself. Let me give you another quote from Brody, and then we'll move on from him. I don't want him getting a big head. But posture of survival as opposed to a posture of service blinds us from the satisfaction of running our race well. There's two things I pull out of this statement. A posture of survival, my interpretation of that was people want to stay in their comfort zone. And I feel like that is what holds a lot of people back, because they're not willing to do, like you said, to challenge themselves. And sales, gosh, like everything that's dollar productive, or just about everything I think that's dollar productive in sales, is not comfortable to do. Calling on people and asking for business and all these things are very, very hard. The other thing I pull out of this in terms of running our race well, one of the things that keeps me up at night is I just feel for my agents and people that are not consistently successful or get out of the business when they had so much potential. I'm worried about the regret, that one day they're going to go, gosh, I wish I would have given real estate, more effort, or wish I would have left it out on the field, all out on the field and gave it my best. So I worry about that a great deal. All right. So let's talk about this. You said selling is not telling. Obviously, we know selling is asking, but you use a P word, time to drink, people, a P word, probing. So talk to me about probing and what it means to you and how people can implement it in their business.
Yeah, I think so much of the time, I think I gave the analogy to you before that, if we go to the mall, if people still go to the mall, if you go to the mall and somebody at a kiosk, just kind of comes up to you and starts just telling you all about their product, I don't typically stop, which is probably bad because I am in sales, but typically it's because I'm in there for a reason. I want to get what I need and get out, right? Mm-hmm. But also, they haven't even asked me do I actually need this product? Do I have one? What do I like about what I have? Is there something that, maybe I don't like about what I have, of the product that I'm currently using? Is there something, they're not asking me questions. And I think that so many sales reps, we do become an expert in we think we're an expert, right? We're never truly the expert in what we're selling, but you have got to ask questions to your clients and to your prospects. You have to find out what is important to them. How can you help figure out a way to, a solution to their problems they may have? Maybe they are, living in an area of town that it's not convenient to them and, in regards to their work. Maybe you can find another place that they could move to that's closer to, their place of work, that would save them money on gas and maybe to a better school system. You don't know those things unless you ask. So if you're just going to go and start showing around somebody to say they wanted to be in some city limits, do you know everything about, what they're truly looking for? Do they want the basement? Do they want the backyard? Do they want a fence for a dog? I think that we forget as salespeople to ask questions. If you can sell all day long, and if you have not even asked one question, you probably haven't sold anything. I think you also have to look at mannerisms of people to even see if they're interested. You can go in and throw up all the data all over them, but are they really accepting that data? Was that even important to them? So I think people have got to remember to probe. I think probing is really important, and trying to find some solutions for these. Because I don't want to be sold on something that I don't need. I don't. I don't want to go buy something if I don't need it. But if you can convince me that it's better than something I have, or if it's going to help me, do something better, then I'm definitely open to buying something. So I think that people have got to remember that. Sell the way that you want to be sold to. I think that's key. Because I don't want somebody to come in just, like I said, I don't have the time in my day for somebody to call me, and I hate it, but I don't. unless they can figure out why I need something, then I'm probably not going to give them my time. So make sure that you are respectful of other people's time and that you definitely are being of value. And by being of value, you're probing because you are finding out what's important to that client or that prospect so that the information you're able to share is worth their time with you.
Well, it's interesting. That made me think of something when you said like sell how you want to be sold to. And I love people that are in sales that follow up with me relentlessly. And if you follow up with me relentlessly, even if I don't really need it, I'm probably going to buy it just because I have mad respect for it. And, you know, and the other part is some of these things I do really need. And I'll call somebody and I may reach out to them or they may initiate the conversation, but it may be weeks before they actually get my credit card or we close the deal just because I'm so busy. And they just, the ones that follow up with me are the ones that are going to get the business. But one of the reasons I wanted to give you this little shout out, but one of the reasons I love doing podcasts so much is the investment that our guests make in me. And one thing that you said, which if you follow any of the content I put out on social media, you're going to start hearing this a lot. But I just absolutely love this and can't wait to incorporate it in my trainings. But like you said, the more a client talks, the more they'll sell themselves.
Yeah, I do. I really believe that. I think that's so important because I'm there as a guest in their house and I do have something to offer them, but I want to know what's important to them and how I can be of value to them to use something. So I think the more that they do the talking, then the more likely you are to sell them because they're almost selling themselves too.
And they're just going to be telling you everything you need to know, whether it's like, what's the next question I need to ask? Or do I need to pivot? You know,
yes,
just
exactly.
This listen.
Do I need to have another plan? What's my follow-up
right.
be? Because I think all those things are really important.
Well, I asked you, I want to close on this, but I was asking you, like, where does your sales knowledge come from? And you talked about having great sales training programs at the companies you work for and great mentors and all those things, which are all super, super important. But one of the things you really focused on during our pre-interview was role play. And we have our real estate company offers role play sessions live via Zoom 4 days a week. And there's a handful of people that get on. And so I just love the fact that you brought that up and would like for you just to kind of share your experience with role play and how that has helped mold you into this amazing salesperson that you are today.
Yeah, I think nobody, let's just go ahead and be real, nobody likes to role play. I mean, even I've done this for 21 years and I don't even like to role play, right? And even in front of, whenever we do sales meetings, we have to get up and role play in front of our peers. And I still get more nervous doing that than I do get in front of going and presenting in front of a bunch of surgeons, which is what I did right before this. So I think it's kind of funny, but I think you do get nervous because it is your peers, but that is so important too, because you can hear little tidbits of what they say and put it in your own words. You can learn the little nuggets. And then I think that transpires to make you better, which challenges you to be better and get you out of your comfort zone. But I do think we have to practice what we do. I think that practicing everything we do matters. I think we can't get better in anything we do unless we practice. I mean, going back to the sports analogy, unless we practice those plays, for the quarterback of the football team, if you don't practice every day putting new things in place to try to become better, then you're not going to see it become a new habit, which is not going to relate into what's going to help you in your success and what you're selling. So I think role play. You can role play in many different ways. I think role playing by yourself is important, whether that's in front of a mirror. I think role playing, if you're even videoing yourself, which I don't personally like to do because I sound like a little country redneck, but some people like to do that. I think also role play with your friends, role play with your peers. I think that you can hear and do it with people that you are willing to accept constructive criticism from, because
that are going to challenge.
Yes, that are going to challenge you. Right. Yes. Right. Like I have a medical science liaison that I was talking to about something the other day with an objection that a physician had given me that was really hard, and I wanted to tell her the way that I answered it. And I said, how does that sound to you? And she corrected one of my words. And I thought, gosh, that's great, because now just the tweak of one word really can make a huge difference in the way that it gets understood to someone. So I think that words are powerful. Words that you say are powerful, but unless you practice those words and your delivery and show and your passion, like I think all of those things come across in a role play, which is why it needs to be practiced. I mean, we can go in and know anything that there is about a certain product or, being a real estate agent. But if you go in, you're like, hey, I'm Jason Will. How are you? I'm here to talk to you. I want to sell your house. Okay. That's probably not going to make me want to really talk to you. So I think that by role playing, you can look at all the different things, your mannerisms, your enthusiasm, your passion, the way that you deliver, come across to somebody else. And that's why I think it's important to role play with different people, because everybody's going to have a different way of what you're telling them, how they're kind of accepting it, because everybody accepts things differently. So I also try to role play to different types of people. And I think that's important to practice. Role playing to that, cold call, practice role playing to that current client, practice role playing to someone that you're following up with. I think that you have to do that to be able to gain confidence, and confidence is key. Sometimes people don't know what the heck they're talking about, but if they're confident about it, I mean, you believe them, right? So
we're going to have a sales podcast where we're going to put the P words versus the C words.
I think we should. That would be good. That would be good. But yes, y'all do not be scared to role play. Role playing, I know nobody really likes it, but it really does help. And I think that you'll see that. Just challenge yourself to try to role play maybe once a week. I mean, seriously, just doing it once a week. That really alone, you'd be surprised at how that would make you more confident. And also maybe try to meet with like one coworker to try to role play once a week. And I think you'll see with just those little changes and getting that feedback on maybe verbiage, or maybe say this, or maybe have you tried this? And it will make you think differently. And I think it will make you be better in what you do.
Well, it's like, I've got to do this. We'll do this one last time with the sports analogies. But whether I'm thinking swinging a golf club, throwing a football, swinging a baseball bat, they talk about muscle memory a lot. And you and I were talking off mic about the power of objection handling. And you've got to, when you're throwing an objection that could kill, one objection could kill your chance at a sale. You've got to have a response locked and loaded, just like muscle memory, to retort that thing, to keep the conversation going. In our business, sellers especially want certainty, and that certainty is delivered by being confident. It's just like going to a heart surgeon, or somebody's going to crack open your chest and going, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, I think I'm going to get a second opinion.
Exactly.
And that's what they're thinking. If they're like, you got to go in there knowing you're the best person for the job.
Right. And you got to fight for it. You got to hustle for it. And I think that's the other thing. You cannot be too comfortable that you got to forget to hustle, because, and I always say that, I think you've said it too. Stay humble, but hustle. You don't want to go in there too overly confident that you're coming across as like, ego and, narcissistic. So don't do that. But if you can at least go in there confidently. And also, here's the other thing I think that's important that people forget. If you do not know the answer to something, whether you're researching all the time and you do feel like because every now and then you'll get asked an objection that you may not know. It is okay to say, I don't know, but I will find out for you, and immediately follow up and find out. Step away. Find out for that client or that prospect. And it's okay to say that. And I think that that's human. And I think so much of the time people would rather lie or talk their way around it. But I never do that, because I don't think long term that you're going to be looked at as a value and a trustworthy source. So I think you have to also just know that your limits, and obviously practice with those role-playing objections. But if you get handed one that you're not used to handling or don't know, because there are those one-off situations, be honest and tell them, but find out and follow up on it. And I think that will hold your value, and they'll really respect it.
Yeah. And I was reading a blog by Seth Godin today, and he was talking about the difference between attention and trust. And attention is short-term, trust is long-term. So you may capture their attention that moment by just giving them an answer that, trying to answer a question you can't thoroughly answer, but you're at the risk of losing their trust, right? But the other thing is you're getting another really purposeful reason to follow up.
Exactly.
And follow up is super important.
It is so important. And people buy from people they like and people they trust. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, I could sit here and talk to you all day, but we got to go. But I'm not sure if this podcast can help you personally get business, but I certainly would like to try. So is there a website you want to plug, or you want to give people some information on how they can contact you?
Well, you can just give them my number or my email address, and they are happy to reach out to me. I mean, I can talk to them all day long while I'm driving along the road, and I can answer any questions that they may have in regards to maybe they get stuck in that sales rut. Maybe they've lost motivation. Maybe they can't figure out their passion. Maybe they've got that difficult customer. Maybe they can't pull that last customer across the finish line. Maybe they're having trouble prospecting. Maybe they don't know how to plan. Maybe they need they need tools to help them, figure out what works best for them for planning. I'm here, and my number, do you want me to give my number out?
If you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. So y'all can call me. My phone number is 205-903-3208, and feel free to call me anytime, and I will be happy to help you any way I can, because I do love helping people, and I want people to be successful that work hard and are passionate about what they do, and that is it.
Well, let me know if a bunch of my agents end up reaching out to you, because we'll work out some sort of coaching consult fee or something, because I know you have so much value to offer.
Yes, but I do love to help people, and I do want people to be successful, and I do like when people reach out and want to use different tools. I think that's the first step, is that we all want to be better. I do. I always want to learn. I always love learning. I think that does nothing but make us better.
Well, I hope people listening, just really going back super briefly at a time, by listening to you, I can tell how busy you are. Just listen to you talk. You can tell that there was a reason why it was so hard to get you in here to record this interview. And so I just hope people appreciate the sacrifice you made to come in here and give us your time. It was so valuable. I really feel like this podcast can change somebody's life. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. And sorry if it was a little bit all over the place.
No, it was really, really good. And like I said, we got to talk all day. But as we wrap this up, encourage people to share this interview with somebody that they know is in sales that may not be really overly satisfied with the results, because this is a game changer. All right, Molly. Thanks. Thanks for listening to the Impact Agent Podcast. If you like the show and got something out of it, please like the Impact Agent Podcast on Facebook and rate and review the show on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. This really helps us grow the show and helps other agents find it. Please share it with your friends and coworkers as well. Want us to deliver the show to you via email every week? Then email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com, and we'll send you the show every week. Please let us know what you think about the show, what you like, what you don't, or possibly make a suggestion about a topic you want to hear. Email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com, or leave us a message on Facebook at Impact Agent Podcast. Until next week, everybody be productive, safe, and happy, and always keep learning. This podcast is produced by Johnny Gwynn at Deep Fried Studios in Mobile, Alabama, and is paid for and powered by ImpactAgentUniversity.com.